I almost don't even want to do an intro on this one. This is such a cool conversation with such a cool dude, Colin Knox from MSP Studio. I almost just want to let it just go in cold, but I just want to say that this is a guy you probably heard his name around. He's been in a bunch of different businesses. We talk about some of his very successful exits, but we brought it up for a reason because I heard him at ScaleCon 24 give this really cool talk about how he had basically achieved all of these things and all the things that it did for him and all the things that it didn't do for him. So we kind of started on some of the more story-driven sort of meta stuff, and then we got more and more into the tactical things as we go. Listen, the guy's obviously figured some stuff out. He's had a lot of success. He's just one of the guys that you want to sit, hang out with. He's also, as I say, just a cool guy, cool conversation. So I'll get out of the way. Let's do it. Colin Knox, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks for being here, man.
Happy to be here. I don't know how much of the myth and the legend. I feel like I'm not yet hit any type of legendary status, and myth. I mean, I'm pretty transparent. I share quite openly. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
All right, deal. Well, if nothing else, I'll say that a man with a reputation who precedes him. You're one of the guys who everybody seems to know in my circles. Everybody's like, well, yeah, and you've talked to Colin, right? Like, I've heard that like probably like 2 or 3 dozen times. So that's something that's exciting about you. And I'm kind of excited to get into it today because you've got a long history in the channel. You've had a lot of businesses ups and downs, which obviously I don't think we have time to cover all of that today. But maybe just for the folks who don't have any context or want a refresher, can you just give me the quick rundown of like why you're here, how you sort of got into where you're going? And
yeah, I guess I'm on the verge of completing my 21st year in what's now known as the managed services market. Back in 2004, I took my first role at an IT consulting firm. Worked at a few of those, or I guess a couple of those companies, just as the managed services revolution was coming into play in the early 2000s, before ultimately starting one with a business partner that failed famously with some challenging business partnership choices of mine. Moved on from that to start my own, was fortunate to grow my MSP to $1 million revenue in its first year. We added $1 million in revenue every single year thereafter until we hit 4 million. And I left the daily operations of that company, ultimately sold it a year and a half after that, but started a cybersecurity company for MSPs on privileged credential management, which most people know as Passportal, which was acquired by what's now known as Enable, previously was SolarWinds. Acted as the VP of community there for a while during my tenure, and went on to then take a bit of a break, realized I was not ready to retire yet, and jumped in with Gradient MSP.
I don't mean to embarrass you or anything, but I want to say something that I heard you at ScaleCon, and you gave a pretty cool, pretty raw presentation actually of a lot of just your history. And yeah. I don't mean to be overly reductive, but one of the big takeaways was like, this guy made a crap load of money and he's got a lot of life left to live. And again, I don't mean to embarrass you or anything like that, but like, I mean, you shared it from the stage, I suppose, right? You have this pretty monstrous exit, if I may.
Yeah.
And I'm building towards something. You achieved something which is kind of hits the X of the bullseye of what a lot of people have convinced themselves is their ultimate goal. Can I say it that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you had to like ask yourself all these new questions that got unlocked. There wasn't like, oh, I've ridden off into the sunset now because I made, enough money where I don't really need to have a job anymore.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, will you just tell me a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for the listeners who are like, one day I'm just going to make my nut and I'm going to, and then I'm just going to have FU money and I will no longer have any problems and all my relationships will be healthy and my body will be magically healthy and I will be happy.
Right?
But you didn't
Yeah.
find that to be all of those things to be automatically true.
No, I mean, it's very interesting the way that you've put that. Actually, just very interesting. I think a lot of people, when they think of success, they visualize this completely different life, right? So they if they're overweight somehow when they get rich, they are fit and they've got a six pack. They Everybody magically respects them and knows who they are and everything else, right? So I had my first exit was my MSP, and that was a seven-figure exit. And I'll never forget the day that the money hit my bank account, right? It's a very surreal experience because you refresh your banking app on your phone. I wasn't even looking at online, but it was just my app. And it refreshed, and there's this bank account with zeros and commas, right? And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And
Mhm.
I went home and we said, all right, we're gonna go out and have a splurge thing at the mall, right? We're gonna go to this mall and we're just gonna buy, I don't know how fruitful I can be here or colorful. We're gonna buy whatever the fuck we want, right? Like no
Yeah.
looking at price tags, just going there, right? And I'll never forget, we pulled up to the mall. We had to park so fucking far from the door. Like that was my first hit. I was like, Jesus Christ, we don't get Rockstar parking because like we had to park super far. It was a Friday, and it's like movie night for everybody, and there's a theater at that mall. We had to park so
Yeah.
freaking far, and I was like, "Oh, this is bullshit." And then,
Which is,
you know,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the first, I love that you're saying this because in your head, exactly, in your head, it's like, oh, the world
you,
will
you
stop
think you're
and
VIP?
celebrate. No,
Yeah,
right. Like,
no,
you
nobody
think,
gives a shit, right?
no,
Nobody.
everybody else, they're going to see a
Yeah.
movie. Nothing has changed for the other 8 billion people.
No, they don't know who you
But
are. So far parking,
anyway, I love it. Anyway, so, okay, so
and
keep
then we
going. So you have
finally
to
park.
walk forever.
We park, and then we hadn't even gotten out of the car. Then we're getting the kids out of the car, and the one kid's just screaming like an idiot, just like just decided they don't want to go to the mall. You know, she's maybe almost four, just losing her marbles. And I'm like, all right, so you don't get to park where you want. Your kids don't behave any better. They don't even know or have any appreciation for any of the stuff. And you're like, yeah, awesome. You don't walk into stores and they're not like, oh my gosh, Mr. Knox, thank you for coming by today. What can we? They don't give a crap about you, right? So that's the first thing that hits. And then you kind of you settle into this life where you have means and you can buy most things that you want. You can do most things that you want, and there's no real change to what it is. Life goes on. Same kind of crap
Mhm.
still happens in your life. And then, yeah, I went on and built the next company and had a multiple eight-figure exit. And you kind of expect the same thing, but you're a little bit more aware of it, and you realize that nobody cares or has any idea. So then you just don't talk about it, right? And I think that's an interesting thing too, is once you've accomplished something like you did the first time, the next time you're like, it's not a big deal. But then you bump into people, and we actually announced the deal. It wasn't too long after. I want to say it was a few weeks after. And I was in Chicago at an event, and I'm sitting there at kind of a bar and chatting with a few people. And then somebody comes up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what?
Whoa.
Calm down. And then this other guy that I was talking to is like, what do you mean? Like, who is this? And this guy just sold his company for so much money to Solar Winds and blah, 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 blah. And then everybody's like, oh my God, why are you here? What are you? It's like, well, no, like you still have obligations you have to attend to and stuff. And yeah, it's life goes on. And I think the more that you can accomplish or achieve, the more you realize that it's not any amount of money or any amount of publicity or celebrity doesn't fulfill you, right? Those things aren't. And I think everybody seems to think that they are. but those don't fulfill you. What you start to recognize, and it's easy to say as somebody that's made something and done something, right? And that's
Yeah.
always how people go about it. But it's the truth. You still, money doesn't solve problems. You know, celebrity or people knowing who you are doesn't solve problems. It can open some doors, but it doesn't take away or solve, family issues. It doesn't take away and solve other stresses and stuff that you're trying to deal with or whatever, or health conditions or any, it doesn't solve any of that. And so I think for me, after I exited the business and actually left the role, I took time off and thought, let's just ride off into the sunset. But you do have this overwhelming desire to contribute something and to be working and actively pursuing something. It's a very empty feeling to just get up every day and be like, I don't even know what day it is. And there's only so many times that you can drive your car through the mountain roads or go skiing or do that, right? Like, it's like you have to have something that you're feeling progress towards. So yeah, we kind of jumped back in, and it was an interesting thing. I mean, some of that initial money access and experience and having a network of people made for a really quick, explosive start to the business. And that was all great. And we invested a ton of money into it. And then the world reminds you that you don't have the Midas touch, and bad luck can hit anybody. And, again, best money and the best people and the best intentions can't outrun, a bad business model, if we want to call it what it is. And yeah, so there was a lot of lessons learned, a lot of humility over about a 2-year period there. And I'd say I have a whole new appreciation again, all over for building something and creating something.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that's, I don't know, maybe you're sick of talking about that kind of thing, but I think it's helpful. I think it helps everybody. And I imagine, frankly, it even helps people in your position to be able to normalize and just take all of the kind of awkwardness or weirdness about the specifics away. Because again, a lot of people, in fact, let me ask you this. I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but I phrased that question where I said, everybody thinks their problems will magically go away. And you said something, you said that I phrased it. It was interesting that I phrased it that way. What were you thinking when you heard me say that question in that way?
I think I've spoken to a lot of people, right? And your inner circle changes over time. And I remember a fellow colleague in the industry sold their MSP for a notable amount, and it was a good sized MSP. And we were chatting about the delusion that happens after that. And he kind of thought money would make all of the family issues disappear. His siblings at adult life that struggled financially and this and that, right? So he thought giving them money was going to clear their problems out and everything else. Well, no, if people are in a poor financial position because they generally make poor financial decisions and have poor financial discipline, your money is just going to follow that same path, right? And then it actually ended up turning into something for him where it became actually a big heated conflict between them. And so it's just one of those things that I think a lot of people have that expectation that it is something glorious and something amazing and everything changes in your life when it happens. But the reality is it doesn't, right? You can fly to further away places, you can stay at nicer hotels, drive nicer cars, wear nicer clothes, but really the world doesn't care, right? You've made your impact, but at the end of the day, you're not anyone to anybody. So yeah, it's a grand disillusion. And so if you can prepare yourself less on the how amazing your life is going to be when you achieve something, I would rather choose to frame it as how amazing I can make other people's lives by what I'm building, that ultimately will have a far more rewarding outcome for me and be far more fulfilling than the amount of digits and commas in a bank account.
Right.
at the end of the day. So yeah.
So for you, I mean, the journey, what obviously you got to the destination. This is the kind of I think the summation of this point that I wanted to make by asking you these questions is there is a lot of people under the word you used was a disillusionment, that they're like, okay, once I'm rich, everything is going to be fine. And that actually that carrot can be a pretty powerful motivator when you have like a poverty mentality.
Yeah.
Like when you think like a poor person, then you are convinced that that a lack of money is your problem, when in reality, you don't have any money because of all of your problems, which is like, to your point, right? Like you can give a gambler as much money as you want and they're going to keep getting broke, you know? And they're certainly not going to stop gambling. It's probably going to get worse if you just give them unlimited, if you give them a trust fund and say, hey, spend this however you want, I believe in you. Like that's probably not a thing that's not actually a loving way to treat that person. But anyway, there's so many, even probably people who listen to this podcast who are like, once I get my exit or I get this thing unlocked, and then I can hire an operator, and then it becomes passive income, and I can just go fishing every day and I'll make $1 million a year in EBITDA. And when your fuel in your engine is shame, then that starts to score up and char up, and like you starts to gunk up all the pistons because it's not clean fuel. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a dirty fuel that burns hot and leaves a lot of smoke behind you. So you have to figure out, it's almost like what I'm hearing from you is that you realize that your motivation, or that the journey again was so much more important than the destination. And now you're motivated by the experience of where you're going rather than what the view is going to be once you climb the top of that.
Yeah. And what the impact is that it can have on businesses or people's lives and the people that own those businesses, right? I think there's everybody's broken in their own regard, right? And there's issues that everybody has. And I think everybody would live a far more fulfilling life if they actually focused on resolving what's holding them back. It's seldom money. Sometimes it is. Sometimes like, I actually can't afford to do shit, right?
Yeah.
Totally fair. But I think if you get down to it and you solve really what you don't like about your life, and again, I actually don't believe in most cases that it's money, right? I think there's tons of MSPs, even the one-person shops that are doing 150 grand a year in revenue. And even if you're paying yourself all that as a sole proprietor, you are making good money, my friend, right? It is not a money issue. It's you have a confidence issue. You have an insecurity. Maybe you're not, maybe you have health ailments that are because of, your level of fitness, right? I had that. I gained some 50 freaking pounds building, selling, and exiting and everything my last business, right? 50 something pounds. That was ridiculous. And I was already overweight, right? That's not a good situation. So when I'm having back issues and knee issues and I can't sleep well and all of this stuff, I'm just perpetually, that wasn't because I didn't have money, as much as I'd be like, oh, in my head, when I get money, I'm going to do whatever, right? No, get out of that situation, get yourself in shape. And a lot of those problems went away. And guess what? I had more energy and I was happier. Or there's a situation, I was in a really bad relationship. That made me miserable. Well, no amount of money was going to make that relationship better, because it was a shit person, right? So, get out of that relationship or fix your relationship. Now, all of a sudden, you've got more energy, you're happier, you're enjoying your life, right? Money isn't the solution to that. But if you're as an MSP or an IT company or any business delivering a service, if your focus is truly on having a positive impact on the customers and companies that you serve, you will naturally achieve that monetary outcome that you want, because people will feel your passion. They will feel that authenticity and how genuine you are. And that just emits and exudes everything from the passion of how you take care of them, your responsiveness, the customer service, the, doing what's right, everything else. And that's going to get more business, because they're going to talk about you, and whether you case study that, use testimonials, get referrals, do whatever, that just builds good business. If you're sitting there focused on how am I going to make my next $1 million in revenue so that I can sell this at a 6x EBITDA multiplier, and then I would have this, man, you're just going to be crunching numbers and talking all day long. You're never going to get there because every customer you lose feels like you're that much further from hitting that goal. Whereas the more customers that you do well with and bring on, what just gets you closer and closer. And you're not looking at that North Star of, a dollar amount. You're working towards this North Star of, I want to help 100 businesses be more secure. I want to help thousands of businesses be more profitable. That's what I want to do. Or make thousands of them profitable so that they don't have the stress, so that they're not worried about how they're making their next mortgage payment or whatever. That's what I want to do, is help thousands and thousands of businesses do that. So that's what fuels me. And guess what? If I'm successful doing that, that means a lot of those people are paying us good money to help them do that. And at the end of the day, somebody else would pay a lot of money to take that over. Am I building this to sell? Not necessarily. I think there's an eventuality that every business at some point gets acquired if it does well. But I digress.
Well, like Simon Sinek says, you're not in business to make money. You're in business to fulfill your mission, and making money is the vehicle that helps you do that. And I think you're onto something, which I think could be a good segue into even some tactical stuff here as a guy who built an MSP and who's been in the channel as long as you have. This is something I do run into. Oftentimes, there's kind of there's two ditches that people fall into on either side of the straight and narrow path of obsessing over the customer experience. The first is usually the younger bucks, oftentimes, not always, but it's oftentimes the people who just have a little bit less experience running a business because they're a little bit more fixated. They're like reading too much Hermosi. They're watching too many YouTube videos of like 19-year-old millionaires or whatever. And they're sort of obsessed with the monetization path. They're obsessed with I want to get rich or I want to be successful. Not that wanting to be financially successful is in and of itself flawed. But if it's the primary motivator behind all of your decisions you make around how you treat your customers, then they're going to feel that, right? And the other extreme is that you oftentimes have the people, usually this is the guys who've been doing this, they've been in IT since like pre-internet. Like they've been around a long time, and their version of obsessing over the customer experience is like they really, really obsess over technical mastery, but not necessarily client satisfaction. They're like, well, if I'm the best at what I do, then the client won't even know what I'm doing, and therefore, like, that's the true sign of me being an expert at my craft. And it sort of, again, this is the ditch where it becomes self-centered again, where we're fixating on ourselves, our own prestige, our own expertise. And somewhere in the middle of those two things is like, yeah, you have to be amazing at what you do. Mm-hmm. You have to do so in a way that you have to be able to make money. Businesses don't work. Visions don't come to life without funding, right? So like, what's your advice to the MSP owner who maybe needs that chiropractic adjustment to be like, how am I fixating and obsessing over the experience that I'm delivering for my clients?
Yeah. There are definitely two camps. There's the people that everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be scalable, and then I can really go after this, right? I need to have 3 technicians and I need to have full trust of them and everything else, and then I can move on to this or whatever. Or they need to have the perfect stack figured out and it perfectly integrated and all of my processes dialed in and everything. Whereas a lot of times, if you do something that's less scalable to prove it out and get stuff going, then it actually affords you the flexibility to be able to spend time tuning and optimizing and perfecting after. Yeah. And then I think there's the people that err on the side of, to your point, is it's the other obsession, and it's that there is a fine line of customer obsession where you can go overboard to the point that it makes you unprofitable, because then you're making poor decisions as a business and over committing to things that don't need to be having. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't grow. I have no capacity. Well, why do you have somebody that's at that customer the amount of time that it is? Because you're not getting paid enough for that, right? And so
often
it's
undercharging out of a like people pleasing
all the time,
complex.
all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need to have something where the unit economics work, and then you need to have it where it's good enough, right? And the world has shown over and over and over again in history that good enough is all that you need. Truly. I will go out on a limb and say it's very seldom that it's the best product that wins. Case in point, you see me with an Apple Watch. I use a Mac. I've got an iPhone. I use the iPad. I am Apple through and through. Who do you think owns the business market? DC. Those are not the best product, right? If you actually look at craftsmanship, quality, reliability, everything else, I mean, I could be talking to an Android guy here, but the reality is often that, see, the best product seldom wins that way and in that regard, right? It's whoever has the best distribution and the good enough product that reaches the right people with the right story is what it comes down to. So, people will choose efficiency over security. They just will, right? So it's a mix of how passionate are you going to be about something to your own detriment, right? And I think we make a lot of selfish decisions in life that don't serve us well because we choose to die on a hill that really doesn't matter, right? And a lot of times that can be whatever, it could be Google versus M365. Does that really matter, right? It could be, this RMM versus that one, this PSA versus that one. Does it really matter? They are all good enough, right? There's not one product that's going to be like, that makes me the best IT company in the world, and I'm going to build the biggest business because of it. No, there's pros and cons to everything. So I think it comes down to finding a model that works at unit economics that work, and do that until you reach a stage where you can't keep up with it, and how you're doing it's not scalable enough, and then you can continue to fine tune and optimize. I think most businesses, and we know that SMB is what runs this world. Most businesses run in a less optimal position. Most businesses are not eternally and infinitely scalable. Grow it to a certain point and then sell it to somebody who is able to take it to that next echelon of scalability and everything else. But yeah, I think it's people get too caught up in trying to perfect something or trying to do something that people just don't want, right? And neither is going to win. So you need a healthy medium in there.
The way I say it in one of my courses is that you don't actually owe the market the best product. You owe the market your best product. Yeah. And that best is also something that changes over time. So I think I really appreciate what you're saying, because oftentimes when people are like, well, I just got to get my stack right, and then they kind of expect that their stack is perfected and that now the clouds will part and people will line up single file to come and buy their managed services. No one cares. Yeah. It's just like when you made your big payday. Nothing changed for anybody around you.
No.
Nothing changes for anybody around you when you get to 0 bugs. Like, obsessing over quality, oftentimes what I found is a form of fear-based procrastination of going out and selling it. And like, in a perfect world, the version of the product you're selling today is the worst version that will ever exist again.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get better over time, correct?
Absolutely.
So you got to swallow that pill that this is the worst it will ever be again. Hopefully this isn't the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully it's better than it was yesterday. But tomorrow it will be better than this, and that's the best case scenario, which means I have to accept that I am not selling a perfect product.
Yeah.
And because, again, perfection, it's a make-believe word. Perfection does not exist. Infinite scalability, that's 100% theoretical, does not exist. Yeah. And there are a lot of concepts, especially people are obsessed with the word scalability, but like, oftentimes a lot of that rhetoric comes from the SaaS vendors who SaaS scales with like a fundamentally different gearing ratio than a service-based business does. Because with SaaS, you just double click and you add a new client. And with managed services, you do a 3-hour onboarding and you drive there and take pictures to add a new client. And then you got to sell them 16 computers. That even if you automate as much of it as you can, we're a service business. It's only semi scalable. Like your costs will go up linearly as an MSP. Hopefully it's just the line is not as steep as the top line revenue goes up. There's just a different gradients, right? But you're going up, so you can, every $2 in new revenue that you generate, it only costs you $1 to do it. So then you can keep increasing top line revenue, but your costs will keep going up. True scalability, the concept of scalability, is fixed costs with exponential, like a fixed linear cost growth and an exponential top line revenue.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really happen in the channel.
It can though, right? So if you look at things, so I'm Canadian. BlackBerry is such a famous Canadian tech story globally. And so if you haven't watched the BlackBerry movie, I can't remember, maybe it's called BlackBerry, absolutely watch it. And there's this point in time where the iPhone comes out and BlackBerry kind of laughs at it, but they crush BlackBerry. And BlackBerry loses all of their deals with the big telco, communications companies like, Verizon and T-Mobile and all of this stuff. And there's this kind of quote of that one of the, whether it was Sprint or T-Mobile or whoever it was, said to the CEO of BlackBerry when they lost the deal, was they said, with the BlackBerry, we were able to sell minutes. With the iPhone, we sell bits, right? There's only so many amounts of minutes that we can ever sell a customer to use a cell phone for. There's infinite amount of gigabytes, megabytes, bits that we can sell any customer. And that was the difference of their shift, right? So if you look at things that happen in our market and everything else, and I've said this a bunch of times, but as an MSP, there's nothing more expensive to your business, truly, than acquiring a new customer. Right? And I think the last statistic I saw reading Service Leadership, ConnectWise Service Leadership report, so that was approximately $32,000 it costs the average MSP to acquire their average customer. And it takes them a long time to earn that money back. Mm-hmm. So if you're an operating MSP and you already have customers and everything else, again, most of what you're selling is really time-based. We don't charge per hour, but let's be real, your technicians only have so many hours in a day, a week, a month to support so many customers. There's only so many screens they can look at, so many clicks they can do and tickets they can respond to. However, we live in this world where currently, what was the last thing we heard from Canalys? There are 35,000 technology vendors looking to sell their wares, their tech products, through the IT channel, through these sales agents of MSPs and VARs and ITSPs and stuff like that. We're so fortunate in that because an SMB seldom makes a technology purchasing decision without consulting their MSP or their IT provider. So if you already have all these customers, this is the reason that Kaseya as a company and ConnectWise and Enable buy companies like Gradient, Passportal, all these other companies over and over and over. And the world and our industry hates it because they're like, oh my God, this is so, I wish this never happened. But guess what? Yes, they put in a capital outlay to buy that company. I'm just going to take that software, like happened with Passportal, I'm going to sell it to the 22,000 MSPs I already have, and they're $500,000 end customers that they already have. And guess what? It costs them, outside of the upfront capital purchase, costs them nothing extra to deliver that service at scale. As an MSP, you don't even have to do that capital outlay. Go find additional services and solutions that drive value for your customers and take that to them. The amount of effort that comes upon you to bill for it at the end of the month, to monitor, manage, and administer, is negligible to the amount of additional revenue you can be capturing if you price it right at a high profit. You can just keep stacking that stuff up. And every MSP goes and says, well, I don't want to nickel and dime my customers to death, and they're out and they're not going to buy anything else. No, much like you continue to buy things and more things because you find ways to be more efficient, more secure, more whatever else, I guarantee you that company, every single one of your customers is constantly buying new shit every single month, right? They're just not buying it from you. So if you find it and get it to them, take it to them. There's so many things that you could be selling them to boost your own revenue. And it's 7 to 9, whatever it is, times more probable that somebody that already buys something from you will buy from you versus somebody who doesn't buy from you, right? So I look at all that stuff and I'm like, MSPs are almost infinitely scalable because they can take on these products. You also have now all of these products. So you look at a company like Enable or like Kaseya, okay? You don't have to buy their PSA or their RMM first to then get access to buy every other product. No. These companies have 13, maybe up to 30 or 50. I don't even know what Kaseya has these days. Different products. That's that many doors that any potential customer can walk through. And once I've got you on one, you're 9 times more likely to buy something else from me. I just got to position it to you. I've earned your business once. I've continued to earn it and earned your trust now. I can stack on more stuff. It's the same thing. You can continue to do that. And you don't have to go out, contrary to some other, people and experts in the industry, you don't have to go out with your everything all the time. Some people want an ability to sample something with you. Holy crap. Yeah. Fine. I will sell you M365 backup because it costs me nothing to deliver that to you. But now you're buying a service from me. And if I chose a good vendor whose product is, again, good enough, guess what? They're happy. I've maybe had to recover something for them. They were happy with that. Awesome. Why don't we talk about some other SaaS backup stuff? Why don't we talk about your general business continuity? How are you doing this, right? Like, you can do the old, maybe it's too old school term, the toe in the door, foot in the door type concept, so much easier now with so many more solutions that you can offer.
I want to weigh in on this because I don't disagree with anything you just said. Having said that, I will say that a lot of the rhetoric coming from vendors specifically, I remember I was talking to a vendor and you would know them. They're very, very large. And we were talking and I'm on a team with like 4 or 5, 6 people in this company. And we're talking about their product. And I basically was like, hey, have you guys ever thought about like positioning it like this? And they all looked at me like a genie had just come out of a lamp. And they were like, whoa, never thought of this. And I was like, that was the first thing that came to my mind. By the way, I'm not claiming to be a genius, but I just was like, okay, have you thought about this? And I gave them like 2 or 3 use cases for their product that were not even on their radar, period.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, though, it hit me. I went, have any of you ever talked to an MSP? And they all just stared awkwardly at me because none of them know their audience at all. Yeah. So here's the reason I want to say that. A lot of vendors are selling, I want to use something as an example, but I don't want to pick on anybody, but like some new, like, okay, this just, there's cybersecurity as an example. There's so many people who are like, this is going to increase the security posture of your end client. And it's maybe in line, maybe not in line with NIST or ISO or whatever, right? But like, okay, now we're going to harden everybody's endpoint and we got to duplicate their endpoint and we got to, what I'm getting at is, I think the infinite scalability concept exists if you can deliver an infinite amount of value. And the value can directly translate to actual purchase enablement to the end user. So I actually wrote about this in my book that like, I can't sell infinite, I'll say it this way. If in theory you could deliver infinite value, then your theoretical value would be infinite dollars. Because I keep solving an infinite amount of problems for you, my commensurate rate would be infinite dollars.
Yeah.
But that assumes that an infinite amount of problems can be solved. And because new problems are coming up every day and problems are evolving, I think obviously infinity is a theoretical concept. So we know nothing is actually infinite, but like using the term, colloquially, I do think that we have to be able to actually create tangible value that's tapping into a finite budget at the SMB. Yes, they are purchasing more stuff, but they don't have infinite dollars to buy infinite tools from an MSP, because we keep infinitely getting more creative about one more little arrow in the quiver for cybersecurity. So I think we have to broaden the value narrative, which is where things like vCISO come into play, or AI as a service, or AI consulting, or GRC. And I think that we can broaden the service type, the service categories, if you will. And I think what that does is it creates new buckets. It unlocks new line items for the end users that they can actually justify deploying towards us. And then if in theory we could help them go generate new revenue, then we could keep taking portions of that new revenue along the ride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the journey towards infinity in that regard. But do you feel like we're saying the same thing? Am I getting stuck in too many semantics here?
Too much infinities, too much continuum. No, I think it's true. And I think this is also why AI is so compelling. It is almost infinite in opportunity of what it can do, right? So you look at this, as a business, I can gradually, over time, replace expensive employees with AI. That's a reality. Now, does that mean I'm going to let staff go purposefully or intentionally to replace with AI? No, but it may mean that as my business grows, I'm not adding additional staff. Instead, I'm using more AI agents to function those in general, right? And if you look at, AI as a production and a productivity tool, yes, I can have a team of 10 people, 20 people that can do the work of 200. Now I've gotten massive scale. And if I need to be doing the work of 200 to satisfy the amount of business that I deliver, that means that has grown with me and I have a growing budget to pay for it. Right. At the same time, if I can leverage AI in methods to help me grow my business, SDRs, almost BDRs, automated demos and sales conversations and engagements and everything else, well then, let's say that AI costs me $100, or let's even go crazy, $1,000 per customer it brings me, but my average customer pays me $10,000 a year. I now have an infinite point of scale for my business on a service. Now, as an MSP at the intersection of technology for every one of your customers, why the hell would you not want to be tapping into that? That literally gives you an infinite growth opportunity to be working with and implementing and managing and administering these types of tools. At the same time, you can also scale your business infinitely. And there's already some amazing AI tools for MSPs when it comes to ticket triage and inbound ticket handling and all of these types of things that can allow you to move faster and do more with the same or less. But yeah, I feel like we are hitting an advent of where technology has gotten to, that there is a ridiculous amount of opportunity, especially for the technology advisor companies in the world today. Yeah. You will never have, I don't believe, a greater opportunity. And the ones that are actually getting out of what we talked about earlier of trying to wait for AI to be perfect, trying to wait until their offering is perfect, trying to, have whatever else to be able to apply to it, you are going to be too late. And you will be run out by the other IT company who had the right offering and consulting practice or advisory around AI, that was their foot in the door of your customer, and then they will expand, right? So
I've never heard somebody explain it that way, that tying those two things together. Let me ask you this, Colin. Curveball. If we take it back, you said something like 20 something minutes ago that was really great about basically obsessing over it's like the Steve Jobs philosophy of like, if you obsess over customer experience and work backwards to the technology, then you'll always succeed, which is why we use Apple, that is 5 years behind the Galaxy in features.
Yeah.
And has been forever and hasn't really changed in 5 years, and I keep buying them because the experience of using it is good, and I don't even care that there's technology features someplace else. But how do we marry and or reconcile these two concepts of obsessing over the client experience while also trying to bring in the AIification of not you're saying service delivery as well as relationship building, you're alleging we could potentially outsource to robots. So can those two things be married, or will they always be at odds?
I think they'll naturally marry in the future. In the future. We're living in the future. I talked about this on a podcast recently with somebody else, which is, you have to acknowledge and respect or appreciate the aging demographic of our average end user, right? The older generation that was highly dependent on IT expertise and computer support and advancing technologies and new things is aging out, and they are retiring and leaving the workforce, being quickly replaced by a generation that has grown up with a computer in their hands, right? They are adept at how to just intuitively figure out a computer and use a computer and find solutions and search the internet and do things, right? They are a growing group of, I'm now going to age myself, but horrifically antisocial people, right? They do not seek relationships. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. They do not seek relationships the way that our generation did, and definitely not the generations before us. They would rather do every communication interaction possible over text, messenger, you name it, not in audio, communicative, oral format. That is not them. They would rather ask Google, and now actually they would rather ask ChatGPT a question before they will ask somebody else, and they will get their answer back. And that is gospel to them, by the way. So I 100% believe that, I think timing, the world and history has proven timing is everything. So has chat taken off and chatbots taken off? And had they in general, you have some success stories like Drift and some other tools and stuff that have, but in our space, in the MSP world, no. Because everybody said people don't want to interact with a chatbot. Guess what? They are doing every freaking day, all day long now. Almost every employee in their business is talking to a chatbot in ChatGPT and Claude and whatever they're using. They're doing that all day long now. And you think that your differentiator is that you pick up the phone when they call you? You don't even want them to phone you because you've given them a tool that will allow them to submit a ticket without having to talk to anybody. And then you want to solve and respond to that ticket without having to call them and do anything. And everything is advanced to that point, right? Now you have to have some measure or some method of demonstrating value, but absolutely, I believe that the relationship and automation and scalability, those will absolutely marry to a thing where your differentiator is not the relationship that you have with these people, right? It will literally be, there will be a lot of commoditized things. You have to discover how to stand out and how to be different and how to actually deliver incremental value on top of everything else that you are the one steering for that business. Because it's not going to be who answers the phone the fastest. It's not going to be who responds to the ticket the fastest, who can, fix your computer issue the fastest. That is not going to be the case, right? It's who can provide the highest value and strategic advantage with technology to those businesses at the end of the day.
Yeah, we have an entire generation growing up, which is basically their own tier one tech support. Is what you're saying. Like they already know how to Google it and find it
easily. Yeah.
And they will have agentic AI in their pocket to do all the tier two stuff in 8 months.
Yeah.
So I'm tracking with you, and as dystopian as all of this is, to be honest, in some way, or as sort of potentially concerning and maybe alarming is a better word. As this can be, I think it's important as technologists, of course, to you have to sort of accept that change over time.
Yeah.
I think you've done a very compelling and articulate job here of explaining to me, a guy who's like, I'm not anti-AI, but my issue with AI is that people will use AI instead of doing any hard work. With sales and marketing, they're expecting AI to figure out product market fit, relationship building, all that stuff today, because they're just too scared to pick up the freaking phone or go on site or take a sales meeting or learn how to sell or read a book. That's my issue with it. Yep. Like I use AI all the time. Dude, I just used Notebook LM. I just fed it one source, which was my landing page and on my website, and I had it make a 5-minute video. I'm not kidding. Colin is probably in the top 10% best infographic videos I've ever seen. Yeah. Like, I'm not exaggerating, but it's because I'm really good at ICP and copywriting and all. It had like a clean source that I didn't do that instead of all of that, but on top of all that, now I have a video that I'm like, this would book me meetings if I just stuck this unedited on my website.
100%. But here's the thing. You did something. You took action and did something. And here's what I'm getting at that has stopped so many companies from growing, so many companies from succeeding, is they dismiss it. They think it's cringe. They don't think it's ready. It's not good. The reality is you're not confident enough in yourself, or that people are going to give a shit about what you have to offer, that you choose to do nothing. But you went and you hooked up Notebook LM and you pointed it at a page you had already created and you had it generate something. And I'm guessing, again, what's going to separate you from the 99 other percent is you're going to go and post that video on your freaking landing page, where so many people would be like, yeah, okay, that was cool, but yeah, I'm not going to use it. No, put it out there, use it, get it doing something. That's the difference maker, is actually taking action. What AI is not going to do for you is everything. It's not going to come up with the idea. It's not going to prompt itself. It's not going to publish the whatever. It's not, it's not going to do. You have to take some step that triggers and gets the rest of the things flowing.
Yeah. That's been a through line for, I think, even from the beginning of this conversation about you, is that you're clearly a guy who isn't afraid to try stuff. And while you're very humble and sort of meek and accessible about your success stories and all of the sort of new existential problems that it kind of, or existential questions it forced you to ask, I think your growth is such an innately spiritual journey, I think. Because you all of a sudden you realize, like, oh wow, I got this big beautiful empty house full of nobody who loves me. Oh shit. Oh no. And you go dark real quick because you realize, like, oh, I was the people who never achieve their goals always get to blame their lack of achievement on their lack of happiness.
Yeah.
But then the people who achieve their goals are forced to confront why they aren't happy. And so it sort of unlocks, people call it champagne problems, but in reality, like, this is a big deal, and I think it's also really cool, to be honest. It's cool that you tell these stories, you tell it so publicly. I love hearing about, a multiple 8-figure exit and then you're probably not that much older than me. You probably would have lived over half your life doing nothing and just sitting around. Yeah. I mean, you probably don't have private island money, but you got more than you need, probably more than your parents made.
Oh yeah.
So I guess my question is, can I have $10,000? I'm just kidding. No.
What are you gonna do with it, and what's it going to give back?
Right. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding. Listen, what are you doing Now, you and I had this cool conversation about the thing you're doing now that I feel like more people should hear about it. You want to just tell people about your latest venture for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few things. So one thing is, in January of this year, 2025, we launched a free resource hub of marketing kits and tools for MSPs called MSP Studio. And that blew up for us. We put out a bunch of marketing kits to help MSPs. And, fast forward 7 months, we have 1,500 MSPs who are taking part in that. We now have gotten to work on, and I'm sure by the time this airs, have launched what we call MSP Studio Plus, which is a full service social media management platform for MSPs with a whole bunch of pre-vetted and designed and crafted and curated content. So getting rid of the need to come up with the content and content creation, the creative design, and all the extra publishing effort to help put for AutoDrive for MSPs. So really unique offering, something that we've built out of passion and working with and talking with tons of MSPs to deliver. So doing that now and super excited about how that's been going and all of the MSPs that's been helping. And my biggest driver with that is to, start hearing the stories of, how it changed perception for them in their market and how they got opportunities from it and how it's impacted their business. And then on the other side, we recently came out of stealth with a new company called MSPCentric, which personally I've struggled for years through numerous companies now with attaching into PSA platforms so that MSPs can be more successful and effective with the management and administration of products I've built. And I kind of finally clued into it that, hey, if I've struggled with this 3 or 4 times now in my career, surely there's other vendors that have all struggled with it too. And it turns out that there has. So we launched that as a PSA integration platform that allows any vendor to be able to tap into that platform and deliver native PSA integrations for all of their partners in a fraction of the time. So yeah, some really exciting things. Not giving myself a whole lot of time to sleep or eat or breathe sometimes it feels like, but all exciting stuff that we're super passionate about and having a ton of fun building.
So you're back to your old antics at least.
Yeah,
Hopefully for your sake, don't put the 50 back on, Colin. We need you happy.
No, that's not. We're staying focused on that. We keep the meal prep service running.
I'm curious. We can cut this out if we want, or we can leave it in. But you just built like a Zapier type of product, but specifically for is that the sort of
no?
You're doing?
It's less Zapier because at the end of the day, the MSP would use a Zapier. This is more like if you Googled or looked up like a Workato or MuleSoft, which Salesforce owns. It's one platform that a vendor builds an integration with us, and then they're automatically integrated with all of the other PSAs. So it's
like a middleware
it's a one-to-many middleware. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Great idea. That's a really freaking good idea. Yet another banger of a good idea from Colin. Listen, is there anything else we left? We've been talking for an hour. I really got to get you out of here, I know. But is there anything else you want to say to the fine people out there of the techiverse?
No, don't chase the dollar. Don't expect it to fix everything. But do something, right? Don't sit there talking all day long. Don't over obsess about something. The best thing you can do is take action to get something that you're passionate about that can have an impact for others.
I love it. Thanks, man, for being here. This was a
Absolutely.
real treat. Hopefully, we're recording this right before ScaleCon, but you'll be hearing this after ScaleCon. I don't know if I'm going to see you at ScaleCon, but excited to see more about studios. There's a feature of me in there someplace. I got some videos.
There is. You got some features. You got some stuff in there too. Yeah.
So thanks again. We'll put some links to some of your stuff in the show notes, and appreciate everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you.